73 BC, an empire built on chains is about to be shattered by them. 70 gladiators, armed with kitchen knives, escape their prison. Within 2 years, they will lead an army of 120,000 slaves, crush 9 Roman legions, and bring the most powerful republic in the world to its knees. This is the story of Spartacus, the Thracian gladiator who forged an army of the oppressed and showed Rome the true meaning of fear. Subscribe to Teduent, where history's greatest rebellions are unearthed. Today, Spartacus, the gladiator who became a general, the slave who became a legend. Rome ran on slavery, and its most brutal form was the gladiator school, the ludus. Men were bought and sold like cattle, brutalized and trained for one purpose: to kill and die for entertainment. In Capua, at the school of Lentulus Batiatus, Spartacus, a former Thracian soldier forced into slavery, learned the art of death. But within him, a different fire burned, not for glory in the arena, but for freedom from it. The plan was desperate. A rumor of their impending doom, being sold to die in the arena, was the catalyst. Around 70 gladiators made their move. Seizing kitchen tools, skewers, and cleavers from the cookhouse, they fought their way out. The guards, accustomed to broken men, were caught completely by surprise. The rebels overwhelmed them, tasting their first, unplanned victory, and fled Capua, leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. The fugitives took refuge on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius. Rome, dismissing them as mere bandits, sent the praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber with 3,000 militia. He blocked the only path down the mountain, planning to starve them out. But Spartacus devised a brilliant plan. His men gathered wild vines, wove them into sturdy ropes, and rappelled down a sheer cliff face on the other side of the mountain, completely bypassing the Roman sea. News of the victory at Vesuvius spread like wildfire. Spartacus became a beacon of hope. From plantations and villas across the countryside, a flood of humanity sought him out. Runaway field slaves, branded fugitives, shepherds, and the rural poor. They were a desperate, disorganized mob, but they shared a common hatred for their Roman masters. Spartacus, alongside his lieutenants, the Gauls Crixus and Onomius, now faced a new challenge: forging a nation on the move. An army needs weapons. Spartacus began raiding the rich estates of Campania, capturing arms and armor. He established a crude but effective production line, melting down plunder to forge swords and shields. He used his gladiatorial knowledge to train his followers, instilling discipline into the desperate masses. He taught them Roman tactics, turning the master's own methods against them. The mob was slowly, painstakingly, becoming an army. Rome could no longer ignore the threat. The Senate, now thoroughly alarmed, dispatched 2 consuls, Gellius and Lentulus, each with a full legionary army. This was not a militia. This was the full might of the Roman war machine. They aimed to trap Spartacus in a pincer movement. The Third Servile War had truly begun. For the rebels, the stakes were now absolute: victory, or the most agonizing death Rome could devise. Success created a new problem: division. Spartacus wanted to lead his people north, over the Alps and out of Italy to freedom. But many, including his key general Crixus, were intoxicated by victory. They craved more plunder and more revenge on the Romans who had enslaved them. Arguing that escape was cowardice, Crixus split from the main force, taking around 30,000 Gauls and Germans with him to continue raiding southern Italy. Alone, Crixus's army was vulnerable. The Roman consul Gellius cornered him near Mount Garganus. The battle was savage and bloody. Crixus and his men fought with incredible bravery, but Roman discipline and tactics ultimately prevailed. 2/3 of the rebel force, including Crixus himself, were slaughtered. Rome celebrated a great victory, believing the back of the rebellion had been broken. They were wrong. Upon hearing of Crixus's death, Spartacus showed a chilling side of his transformation. He captured 300 Roman soldiers. Then, in a grim reversal of fate, he honored his fallen friend with funeral games. But these were not athletes. These were Roman prisoners, forced to fight each other to the death in gladiatorial combat, just as the slaves had been. The oppressed had truly become the oppressor, using Rome's own cruelty against it. Fueled by grief and rage, Spartacus now moved with terrifying speed and purpose. He separately engaged and defeated the armies of both consuls, Lentulus and Gellius, in stunning succession. He then confronted the governor of Cisalpine Gaul and crushed his army as well. The road to the Alps was open. Freedom was within his grasp. He urged his people to make the final push, to cross the mountains and disperse to their homelands, forever free from Rome's grasp. And then, in one of history's most baffling decisions, they turned back. Why? Historians can only speculate. Was the army, now rich with plunder, unwilling to abandon its wealth? Did they believe they could sack Rome itself? Or could Spartacus simply not convince the massive, unwieldy host to face the hardship of the Alps? Whatever the reason, they turned south again, marching back into the heart of the Roman Republic. It was a fatal mistake. Panicked, the Senate turned to the richest man in Rome, Marcus Licinius Crassus. Given command of 8 legions, Crassus was ambitious, cruel, and brutally effective. He cornered Spartacus in the toe of Italy. Then he did the unthinkable. He built a wall, a massive ditch and rampart, 37 miles long, stretching from one coast to the other, trapping the entire rebel army. Spartacus was caged, trapped and facing starvation. Spartacus made one last desperate gamble. He struck a deal with Cilician pirates, paying them a fortune in gold to ferry his army across the strait to Sicily, where he hoped to reignite the slave revolts. The pirates took the gold, and then, under the cover of darkness, they simply sailed away, abandoning the rebels to their fate. It was the ultimate betrayal. There was no escape. On a stormy night, Spartacus filled parts of the ditch and broke through Crassus's wall, but his army was weakened. The final battle came at the Sila River. Knowing the end was near, Spartacus reportedly killed his own horse, declaring he would win on foot with his men or die with them. He charged through the ranks, trying to cut his way to Crassus himself, but was overwhelmed. He died as he lived, a warrior fighting to the last breath. Crassus was merciless in victory. He captured 6,000 survivors of the battle. To make an example that would terrorize every slave in the Republic, he crucified them all. For miles along the Appian Way, the main road to Rome, thousands of crosses lined the path, each bearing a dying rebel. It was one of the most horrific warnings in history. Rome had won, and the price of failure was absolute agony. Spartacus died, his rebellion was crushed, but his name became immortal. For later Romans, he was a terrifying boogeyman. But for millennia of oppressed people, revolutionaries, and dreamers, he became something more. An eternal symbol of the fight for freedom against impossible odds. The slave who died fighting for dignity became a legend that would outlive the very empire that killed him. Ironically, Crassus was denied the ultimate glory. Another Roman general, Pompey the Great, returned from Spain and mopped up a few thousand fugitive slaves, then wrote to the Senate claiming that while Crassus had defeated the Gladiators, he, Pompey, had extirpated the war by its roots. The political maneuvering for credit began immediately, setting the stage for the rivalry between these two powerful men, a rivalry that would ultimately help bring down the Roman Republic itself. Subscribe to Teduent if you enjoy my video. Rome built an empire of chains, but Spartacus proved that even the strongest chains can be broken. The man died, but the spark of defiance is eternal.